We grow up believing that awakes. A man may be captivated by your appearance, but he's only truly drawn in when you make him see himself, not with ostentation, but by evoking the latent identity within him. The difference between vanity and pride is like the difference between the flash of a camera and the smoldering fire beneath the earth. A flash dazzles, grabs attention for a moment, then fades. But that quiet flame, though unassuming, has the power to warm an entire space, enduring, profound, and lasting. Compliments like, "You have such captivating eyes," or "That shirt looks great on you," are like summer hits, catchy, forgettable, replaceable. But a statement that touches the deep pride within a man is different. It's like handing him a unique mirror, not reflecting his present self, but the image of a higher version he's always secretly wondered if he could become. A man doesn't love you because you see what everyone else sees. He loves you when you see something he isn't even sure exists within himself. Imagine a young man struggling in his career, not yet successful, but refusing to give up. He hears plenty of hollow encouragements. "Keep going, it'll work out," or "Good luck." But one day you look him in the eye, no pity, no platitudes, and say, "I see something in the way you think, something that transcends your current circumstances." It's like your mind is operating on a level the world around you hasn't caught up to yet. That brief statement strikes at the core of his ego, making him feel not just heard, but understood to his very bones. It's an affirmation not for the loud ego, but for the quiet one screaming to be validated. Here's the crux. Vanity is something anyone can offer, but pride is something only a person of depth can ignite. Vanity thrives on comparison. "You're more handsome than that guy. You're smarter than my friend." But pride thrives on affirming core values without needing to measure against others. It says, "You are remarkable, not because you're better than someone else, but because of the way you exist." In Jung's analytical psychology, the ego is the conscious self, and every action, reaction, and decision flows from it. But that ego constantly craves validation, not just "I exist," but "I am valuable, I am evolving." When you say something that hits that axis of value, you don't just make him feel better, you make him believe he's worthy of the image he's never dared fully embrace. This doesn't mean lying to flatter. On the contrary, you must observe deeply, listen carefully, and speak the truth. A woman who sees the potential energy beneath a man's surface, that's an irresistible force. It's like the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is mended with gold. Instead of hiding the cracks, they highlight them, because those cracks tell the story and value of the piece. You too don't need to praise him as perfect. You just need to recognize and highlight the golden cracks in his character, things he thought were flaws, but you see as unique. A man may fall in love with many, but he only truly commits to the one who makes him feel like a higher version of himself. And it begins with a look, a word, a moment when you make his ego feel, "She sees me." Not the outer shell, but the part I haven't dared to show. Carl Jung once said, "We are not what happened to us, we are what we choose to become." And when you're the first to reflect what he chooses to become, even if it's still vague, you plant a seed no one else can replicate. Number 2, let him conquer you, but make it worthy. But for that seed to grow into a lasting bond, it needs something else. A challenge. Not a game, but a journey he must embark on if he wants to truly reach you. Because the masculine ego doesn't just thrive on recognition, it blossoms in the feeling of triumph. He needs to feel he's won you, not because you're difficult, but because you symbolize something higher, deeper, not easily possessed. Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." In the context of love, this means true connection doesn't come from what's comfortable or easily attained, but from what forces a man to rise to be worthy. You don't need to build walls, but you shouldn't leave the gate wide open either. Just enough distance, a touch of uncertainty, and moments when you choose to step back, not to evade, but to give him the chance to step forward on his own. That's where love matures. Imagine standing in a forest. A beautiful flower grows by the path. You bend down and pick it without thinking. It's lovely, but not special. But if a rare flower blooms atop a cliff, to reach it, you must climb, sweat, and strive. When you finally hold it, it's not just a gift. It's part of a journey you'll never forget. Have you ever felt like that flower, plucked too quickly, then forgotten too soon? If you've experienced this, share that feeling. in the heart. In love, pauses are part of the dance. And the most important thing, you don't create distance to punish. You do it so he feels you're a prize of value, something not just anyone can claim, not because you're hard to get, but because you have your world, and you choose who's invited in. True love doesn't make a man feel he has you. True love makes him feel he's worthy of you. And that feeling is what keeps him anchored long after the initial spark fades. You don't need to play games, pretend to be busy, or act aloof. Just live authentically in your values. Don't reply to a message when your heart isn't ready. Don't nod to half-hearted promises. Don't fear creating a little space, because sometimes what awakens the ego is the echo of distance. And when he begins to change, not because he's pressured, but because he wants to be worthy of you, that's when the real journey of growth begins. But to keep that journey from stalling at the conquest, you need to reach deeper, to the part even he hasn't fully defined. The ideal self. Number 3, reflecting the ideal self, the archetype he aspires to become. Carl Jung called it the ideal self, the idealized image each person carries in their unconscious, an unformed entity that lingers like a faint flame in the darkness. For men, this ideal self often takes the form of someone strong, commanding, successful, admired, yet possessing depth and inner direction. It is what he yearns to become, though he may not dare voice it aloud. The intriguing truth is this: very few people truly see that version of him. Most only respond to what he outwardly projects, his job, his manner of speech, or the persona he constructs. But the person he cannot forget is the one who reflects what he has not yet become, but secretly longs to be. Not because she embellishes or flatters, but because she perceives a version of him that no one else has named. Imagine a man standing at a career crossroads, outwardly strong, but inwardly riddled with doubt. An ordinary woman might ask, "What are you going to do next?" But a woman who truly grasps the essence of the ideal self looks deeper and says, "I feel like you were made for something greater. Not just a job, but a legacy. It's as if you haven't yet found the right stage to shine." Those words, when born of genuine intuition, are not mere praise. They are an awakening. He doesn't just feel understood, he feels seen in a way he had forgotten. In that moment, you cease to be just a woman in his eyes. You become a sacred mirror, reflecting the image he is willing to evolve toward. Jung once said, "Thinking is difficult, that's why most people judge." Thus, when you are the first to see his untapped potential, your gaze becomes a map guiding his inner journey of growth. This is why, for some women, a man may transform his entire life, not because they control him, but because they see themselves more clearly in her presence. But here lies a crucial point. You must not mistake yourself for the changer of men. This is not about salvation. You are neither his guide nor his teacher. You are simply the one who sees, without judgment, without pressure, without embellishment, only seeing and believing. That presence holds more power than any argument. You must become the person who makes him feel, "She sees this in me, so I want to believe it's true." Not because you need him to change, but because you naturally believe it exists. And the male ego, forever caught between doubt and affirmation, will cling to that gaze as a psychological anchor. What's remarkable is this: when you awaken the ideal self within him, Every moment he spends with you carries the feeling of, I am closer to the person I want to become. That is the most addictive sensation for the ego. Not possessing you, but becoming a better version of himself with you by his side. True love is not merely closeness, it is transformation. And a wise woman does not create transformation through sacrifice or control, but through rightful presence, timely words, and a gaze deep enough to pierce the surface. You don't need florid language. Sometimes a simple sentence born of intuition and keen observation is enough to stir a restless ego lost in silence. When you speak, don't speak to the present, speak to the potential. Don't merely affirm who he is now. Call forth the version of him that is budding, but which he hasn't yet dared to acknowledge. For when a man loves, not only because of who you are, but because of who he becomes in your presence, that love does not easily fade. It is tied to his deepest self, to his most secret dreams, and to the belief that you are part of his journey toward fulfillment. Number 4, challenging with respect. Yet, no inner growth occurs without conflict. If you dare to challenge him, but with respect. This is an art, a delicate thread between igniting potential and triggering defensiveness. Like a skilled teacher who doesn't instruct through reprimand, but through faith that the student will go further, if awakened rightly. To do this, you must see him not only with loving eyes, but with the eyes of someone who believes in evolution. You don't challenge him because he disappoints you. You challenge him because you know something greater awaits him. Remember, men live under the pressure to be okay. They are rarely allowed to doubt, rarely permitted to show insecurity. Beneath the sturdy exterior is a silent dialogue with themselves, Am I good enough? Am I on the right path? Most of the time, he pushes through, not out of strength, but to avoid being seen as unprepared. Thus, when you are the first to see that inner struggle without judgment and pose questions that make him think without wounding him, you create a rare space, a space for psychological growth. This is not indulgence, nor is it suppression. It is an awakening through a profound gaze. You challenge him not to control him, but to see him surpass himself. And when this resonates, the man begins to tie his personal growth to your presence. That is the kind of love that keeps him from leaving, not because you always make him feel good, but because you are the only one who makes him feel he can be better. And that, to the male ego, is 1,000 times more compelling than praise or pampering. Carl Jung once said, "A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them." If you are the one who dares to walk beside him in that inferno, not to lead the way, but to hold the light for him to find his path, you become part of his awakening journey. Number 5. Empowering the role of the protector. When you are the one who makes him confront his limits while still feeling respected, you do not merely touch his ego. You delve into what Jung called the heart of the individuation process, where the self is no longer shielded, but begins to transform. And at this intersection of vulnerability and potential, an ancient archetype in the male psyche begins to stir: the protector. In the collective unconscious, a central concept in Jung's analytical psychology, there exist primal patterns called archetypes. These are vivid, timeless symbols that shape behavior, dreams, and the deepest layers of human identity. For men, one of the most powerful archetypes is the hero or the protector, the figure who stands between the world and danger, not merely to fight, but to safeguard what is sacred. Yet, crucially, this archetype does not awaken unless there is something worth protecting. Herein lies the mistake of many modern women. In striving to prove they need no one, they inadvertently strip away the most instinctual role a man yearns to embody. They believe that absolute independence earns respect. But psychology reveals the opposite. A truly strong woman is one secure enough to create space for another's strength to coexist alongside her own. Empowering the protector does not mean becoming weak, dependent, or feigning helplessness. It is about allowing him to step into a role deeply meaningful to the male ego without diminishing you. Instead of saying, "I can handle everything, I don't need anyone," you might choose to say, "I feel secure when you're here." It's simple, not because you cannot stand on your own, but because his presence makes you stronger. This is how you grant power without surrendering your own. In practice, this can begin with details so subtle they are often overlooked. Asking his opinion on a matter you've already considered, not because you're clueless, but because you want to give him space to lead. Letting him open a jar, fix a loose chair, or remind you to bring a jacket when it's cold, not because you can't, but because it allows him to express his archetypal instinct healthily. Jung once said, "When an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside, as fate." This means a man must recognize his protective instinct within himself to avoid being blindly driven by it, and you can help him become conscious of it by letting him be himself. In love, what binds a man is not the feeling of being served, but the sense that he is serving something meaningful. When you allow him to become the protector, not through pleading, but through acknowledgement, You grant him the sacred role his unconscious has always craved. This is especially true for men who seem cold or indifferent. Often, it's not that they don't care, but that they cannot find a clear place in your inner world. A man unable to express his role will gradually detach emotionally. But if you create just enough space, not for weakness to creep in, but for him to step forward with his strength, the connection between you is forged not just by emotion, but by existential meaning. Deep love does not come from proving you need no one, but from daring to let someone worthy take part in your constant attachment, but from distance, opposition, and separation. In love, this manifests when two individuals do not merge into one another, but create timely distance to become clearer in each other's eyes. A man only realizes his true emotions when he steps out of the familiar warmth. When you are always there, texting first, replying quickly, ever present, you become the backdrop of his life. He no longer sees you clearly, not because you fade, but because constant light blinds the eyes. But when you withdraw, not with anger or sulking, but with elegant silence, you create enough darkness for him to recognize who shines in his life. In psychology, the mechanism of perceiving loss is always stronger than that of perceiving presence. We only truly value something when it is no longer within reach. Yet women often fear creating distance, worried that he'll forget me. In truth, it is when you are always there that he takes your presence for granted. But when you step back, silently, with dignity and without demands, you make his ego confront loss for the first time. And if you have already touched his pride, ideals, potential, and protective role, then your absence is not merely the lack of a person. It is the lack of a part of his definition. He doesn't just miss you, he misses the person he becomes in your presence. If what you're hearing now makes you realize you've been that resonant absence in someone's life, leave a sign to let us know you're here, a like, a subscription, a way to say, "I've understood this with my whole heart." After all the longing, pursuit, and distance, what makes a man deeply attached is not what makes him feel strong, but where he is allowed to be vulnerable without losing his worth. Number 7, a place where he can unmask and still be loved. The deepest point of love is where the ego is no longer propped up, but allowed to rest. Carl Jung once said, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. Within every person, even the seemingly strongest, most independent and confident men, there exists a hidden part, the shadow. It is the place where repressed emotions, nameless fears, and unacknowledged wounds reside. Society trains men to control, to be steadfast, to succeed. But the cost of maintaining this facade is inner isolation. And then they love. But not every love reaches that depth. Many relationships only touch the best parts: success, confidence, intelligence, and strength. Rarely does someone feel safe enough to step into the darkness without making him recoil in fear of judgment. This is why the woman who truly binds a man is not the most talented, the most beautiful, or the one who makes him strive the hardest. It is the one who first makes him feel, "I can take off my mask and still be loved." Imagine a warrior returning from battle. Sweat, blood, and exhaustion cling to his body. He doesn't need admiration, nor does he need immediate healing. What he needs is a place to shed his armor without being met with pity or fear. A woman who becomes that place does so not with grandiose words, but with a non-judgmental presence. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is an inseparable part of the psyche. It is not evil, it is merely neglected. And the individuation process cannot be complete without daring to face and embrace the shadow. For men, this is even harder, as their shadow is often buried under societal expectations. Men must not be weak. They must know what they want. They must always be strong. Thus, when a man finds a woman who can see him in his most fragile moment and does not retreat, that is a love his ego cannot deny. Picture an ordinary moment, a weekend evening when the man you love returns after a long day. No major event has occurred, but you sense the weight in his steps, the familiar spark absent from his eyes. He opens the fridge, grabs a beer, slumps onto the couch, and says nothing. You ask, "Are you okay?" He nods faintly, his gaze lost in the void. A common reaction for many women is excessive worry. "You're making me anxious, acting like this. Tell me what's wrong." But if you understand what's happening within him, you'll know this is not the time to question or analyze. This is a moment when a man is wrestling with his inner darkness, and the only thing he needs is your presence without interrogation. Healing does not begin with offering advice, but with creating a safe space where the ego can stop straining. And that is the art of a woman who understands deeply. To love is not to possess, but to allow the other to be themselves, even when that self is not pretty. Love endures not through moments of joy, but through moments when you see the other broken and you don't run. That is the kind of connection that resonates in the deepest layers of the soul. It is when a man, after everything, can say, "I fell before her, and she didn't see me as weak. She still valued me." Carl Jung never defined love in the conventional romantic This belief is like an invisible net. It seems protective, but in reality, it imprisons. Within that pattern, women easily see silence as proof of indifference. One day without a text becomes the conclusion, he doesn't love me anymore. One night without a call turns into fear. Is there someone else? And from there, the spiral of anxiety begins. Carl Jung called this projection. When we fear abandonment, we unconsciously project that fear onto another person's actions. A man's silence is no longer simply because he is busy or just wants time alone. He becomes the embodiment of the deep obsession. I am not important enough. Imagine a woman sitting in front of her phone. At first, his silence is just like a passing breeze. But a few hours later, her mind has woven a whole story. He doesn't love me anymore. He vanished because I'm not attractive enough. He must be with someone else. These scenarios aren't real, yet they have the power to make her heart ache, her sleep restless, and her days unbearably heavy. A friend once told me that after her partner went away on a long business trip and didn't call often, she felt abandoned for an entire week. But when he returned, she learned that he was buried under a tight project deadline, barely having time for himself. His silence had nothing to do with indifference. It was just the way he was coping with his own world. Jung once emphasized, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." In this case, the fate of many women is being controlled by unconscious fears. They don't hurt because he is silent, but because the silence touches their wound. The fear of not being enough, of being left behind. Think of a distorted mirror. When you look into it, your face is warped. But the truth isn't that you are ugly, it's the mirror that has twisted the reflection. In love, it's the same. When the mind is ruled by false beliefs, we see silence as proof that we no longer have value. But in fact, it is the fear within that is the distorted mirror. If we pause, we will see there are countless reasons someone might choose silence. Work pressure, a need for space, personal habits, or simply different ways of expressing affection. But when we believe in the formula, care equals constant messaging, we only see the other person through the lens of our own fear. The solution here is to heal the fear of abandonment. When no longer controlled, another person's silence loses its power to shake us. We can observe it, understand it, but not treat it as a denial of our worth. Men and women are taught different scripts by society. Women are taught to measure love through clear signals. Men are taught to suppress emotions, to express less. Instead of seeing them as cultural scripts, many women see them as their own fault. He's silent because I'm not good enough. And that is the trap to break free from. Have you ever been caught in that spiral? Ever felt your heart trembling just because a green dot didn't light up or a message didn't arrive? If so, remember, the pain doesn't come from the phone, nor from him, but from the false belief that silence equals abandonment. And when you change perspective, you'll see a new door open. Silence is no longer a sentence, but an invitation to listen to yourself, to heal old wounds, and to see the other person as a complex human being, not just a character in a script written by society. If you continue to believe in this trap, you will remain stuck in an emotional chase where happiness depends on someone else's behavior. But if you dare to step out, you will discover a new freedom. The freedom to see reality as it is, without the lens of fear. And that is the very first step toward a deeper question. When he disappears, what does the silence really mean? A question we will continue to decode in the next part. What do you think? Out of 100 men who vanish without a word, how many are truly silent because they are battling themselves, and not because they have left the relationship? Leave the number you guess in the comments and see how others perceive this. Number 2. When silence is an unconscious test. There is a truth many women don't expect. Sometimes, a man's disappearance without explanation is not meant to hurt you, nor necessarily because he has lost feelings. In many cases, it is an unconscious test, an instinctive reaction happening even when he is not fully aware. He withdraws, doesn't reply, doesn't show up, as a way to observe, how will she react when I am absent? Will she collapse, chase after me, or still maintain her peace? Carl Jung once emphasized, the unconscious mind of man sees correctly even when conscious reason is blind and impotent. When a man disappears, he may not consciously plan to test you, but unconscious energy still drives him to act that way. Your reaction at that moment reveals so much. From then on, his respect for her grew. Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Instead of only blaming him for disappearing, look at your own discomfort. What does it reveal about unhealed fears inside you? What does it show about the dependence you need to let go of? The paradox is, the more you worry and chase after him during his absences, the further you push him away, because his unconscious will sense you cannot stay balanced without him. And this both creates pressure and diminishes attraction. In contrast, when you remain calm, you send a subtle message. I can love you, but I do not lose myself. Men may not say it out loud, but they feel it deeply. And that self-possession is what earns their respect and desire to stay. So, if one day he disappears without explanation, don't be quick to conclude it means he no longer loves you. Sometimes, it's simply a pause, an unconscious test, and your response is the most powerful answer. If you keep your peace, he immediately senses that you are a woman of inner strength, one who does not need to depend on another to exist. And that is the foundation for mature love, instead of a power game. And what about you? Have you ever gone through such an unconscious test when he suddenly went silent and vanished? Share your story in the comments. Who knows, your experience might become the light that helps another woman walk through a similar silence. Number 3. Silence as a mirror reflecting dependence. After realizing that a man's unexplained disappearance can sometimes be an unconscious test, the next thing you need to see is this. Your reaction in those moments is like a mirror. His silence exposes how much you are dependent on another person's presence in order to feel safe and valuable. Every time he disappears and you frantically check your phone, imagine countless scenarios. What you are really confirming is, I need his attention to exist. Carl Jung called this the unbalanced relationship between the ego and the unconscious. When the ego is too afraid, it gives way to the shadows within, the fear of abandonment, the sense of not being good enough, and lets them lead. You no longer stand at the center of yourself, but are swept away by emotional waves created by another. In literature, Tolstoy portrayed this clearly in the character Anna Karenina. A beautiful, intelligent woman, yet she let her love for Vronsky consume her whole life. Every glance, every word, and even his silences became the compass of her soul. When Vronsky grew indifferent, Anna panicked, desperate. Tolstoy wasn't only telling a love story, he was pointing out the danger of women losing their center and letting a man's silence define their worth. Anna's tragedy is proof. When you gaze into the mirror of dependence, you no longer see truth, but only distorted reflections of your own fear. In real life, this happens more often than we think. Many intelligent, accomplished, independent women collapse when the man they love suddenly goes silent. They neglect work, fix their eyes on the phone, suffer sleepless nights. When he finally returns with a brief, "I was so busy," they immediately forgive, pretending nothing happened. The problem isn't that he was silent, but that she allowed his silence to control her entire mental state. She handed over the power to define her worth to him, instead of keeping it for herself. Jung once wrote, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." Because women haven't yet faced their own shadows, the fear of abandonment, the insecurity of not being enough, his silence becomes the knife that cuts directly into unhealed wounds. What hurts isn't his disappearance, but the way silence reflects back the hidden corners we've long avoided. The important thing is to learn how to regain your own center. Silence is not always a sentence. It can be an opportunity. An opportunity to look directly into the mirror and ask yourself, why does this absence throw me into panic? The answer won't be found in him, but in you. It may bring you back to old memories where you were neglected. It may reveal past relationships where silence meant goodbye. Or simply it may show that you have not yet learned to stand firmly on your own. One woman shared that after repeatedly suffering breakdowns over her partner's disappearances, she set a new rule for herself. Each time he went silent, instead of collapsing like before, she created her own schedule, meeting friends, joining a class, practicing self-care. At first, she still felt empty, but little by little she realized she could feel complete from herself, not from a phone call. His silence became the reminder. She had neglected herself for too long. And from that point on, she no longer feared silence. Silence is not the end, it is only a mirror. If you tremble and panic before it, you see the image of a dependent woman. But if you stand firm, keeping your balance, you see yourself, whole, complete, not defined by anyone's presence or absence. And that is the deeper message Jung left. True freedom does not come from controlling others, but from learning to keep is that still lake. It forces you to see yourself rather than constantly track his reactions. Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Awakening always comes with pain, and the pain of a man's disappearance is the opportunity to awaken to how long you've abandoned yourself." Silence, instead of being a sentence, can become the ticket back to your inner self. It is like an empty canvas. Instead of waiting for someone else to paint it, you can pick up the brush and begin painting your own life. In real life, many women have turned this experience into rebirth. One shared that when her partner often disappeared, instead of burying herself in obsession, she tried something different, taking short, solo trips. The first time she took a bus to the beach for the weekend, sat for hours listening to the waves and writing her journal. Another time, she joined a trekking trip with strangers. Each journey helped her realize that emptiness wasn't a void, but space to fill with new experiences. And the most surprising thing was, when she returned to daily life, she no longer relied on his messages as her only lifeline. The key shift is this: from letting silence define you, to using silence to redefine yourself. When you stop waiting for someone else to appear, you finally show up for yourself. And the paradox is, the moment you stop needing to prove, I am important enough for you to care, you become most magnetic. Because others feel the energy of a woman who still shines even alone. In the Jungian view, silence is no longer absence, but an opportunity to meet the self, the whole self within. The self has always been there, only hidden by fear, dependence, and the habit of living for others. When you dare to sit in the quiet, you realize you were already whole. And from that wholeness, you can enter relationships without being swept away. So the next time he disappears, instead of asking, "Where is he? What is he doing?" try asking, "What do I need? What have I neglected in myself?" Maybe it's a deep sleep, an unfinished page, a chat with an old friend, or simply a quiet afternoon to breathe. These things are small, yet they are threads that pull you back to yourself. Among hundreds of women who fear silence, only a few dare to see it as a gift to return to themselves. If you are one of them, leave the sentence, "I am whole even in silence," in the comments, as a sign that you are truly beginning the journey back to your true self. Silence, after all, is not darkness to fear, but space in which you can light your own flame. And when you learn to turn emptiness into strength, you'll realize no one can ever truly abandon you unless you abandon yourself. Number 5. Sometimes silence is his inner battle. If silence is not merely indifference, but the echo of a battle he himself is facing, have you ever tried to see it as an invitation to understand, rather than simply as abandonment? We are taught to see silence as avoidance. No text means no care, no call means no love. But if we pause and look deeper, we see that some silences are not aimed at us, but are his struggles with unresolved parts of himself. Carl Jung emphasized, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Perhaps at the very moment he disappears, he is confronting his own shadows, anxieties, wounds, or fears he has no words for. Picture a warrior entering a dark forest. He wears armor, yet his heart trembles because the enemy is not outside, but hidden in his own insecurity. For many men, love awakens deep fears: fear of commitment, fear of not being good enough, fear of being hurt as before. And since they were never taught to speak about emotions, silence becomes their only shield. A woman once shared how her boyfriend often disappeared without reason. She suffered, assuming it was indifference. But when he finally trusted her enough to open up, she learned he had been struggling with financial stress and work pressure, fearing he wasn't worthy of her. In his eyes, silence was a way not to disappoint her. He feared that showing weakness would make him lose the strong image society expected. His silence wasn't betrayal, but a battle. The irony, in trying to protect her from his fears, he threw her into confusion. In Jungian terms, this reflects the conflict between persona, the social mask he must wear, and shadow, the dark parts he hasn't accepted. When love touches him, these two collide. Silence is the space where the battle unfolds. He doesn't disappear from you, but into himself. The difficulty is that women often interpret silence through their own lens. For them, silence recalls abandonment. But for men, silence is often the only way to survive storms of emotion they cannot yet put into words. If misunderstood, women feel like victims. But if you look deeper, you may see Some silences come from inner battles, but there is another possibility, harsh yet important. He is no longer interested, not mature enough to face things directly, or doesn't want to continue. This is the hardest to accept, because the human heart always hopes. When he disappears, you invent countless excuses. But if the silence repeats, without effort to return, the truth is not about you, but about him. Carl Jung once wrote, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." In love, if you avoid the truth that silence is the answer, you get trapped in illusion, wasting energy on someone who has already left the game. A clear sign of this in modern life is the culture of ghosting, vanishing completely with no explanation. It reveals a truth. Many lack the courage to refuse directly. Silence in this case is not creative pause or reflective mirror, but a closed wall. And instead of knocking endlessly, the wisest choice is to accept the door is locked. From the man's view, one admitted he chose silence to leave because he feared seeing his girlfriend's tears. He knew his feelings were gone, but lacked the courage to say goodbye. In his mind, silence was a gentler way, so she would understand without anger. But he admitted it was immature, because it left her with deeper wounds. Sleepless nights asking, "What did I do wrong?" The irony, silence sometimes hurts both. For women, recognizing silence as an answer is the turning point of liberation. Instead of exhausting energy decoding a mystery that doesn't exist, you stop asking, "Where did I go wrong?" and ask, "What does this disappearance say about him?" If he's silent because he's busy, he will come back and explain. If he's silent because of inner battles, signs will show. But if silence is endless, with no effort to reconnect, it is no longer testing or struggling, it is a choice. And that choice is not you. A therapist told of a client who waited almost a year for her ex to contact her after he vanished. Every day she checked her phone dozens of times, clinging to scraps of memory. But in therapy she realized what she waited for wasn't him, but validation of herself. And that validation would never come from someone who had chosen to disappear. It could only come from herself. Silence, in this case, is an invitation to awaken. It forces you to face the truth. Not everyone has the courage or love to walk with you long term, and that does not lessen your value. On the contrary, it gives you the chance to break the illusion and save your energy for a worthier relationship. Imagine standing before a closed door. If you keep knocking, your hands bleed, your heart empties. But if you step back, turn down another path, you'll see many doors still open. Not every door is for you, and not every silence deserves interpretation. Sometimes it is simply the end. The key is to learn to distinguish. When silence comes with other efforts, signs he still cares, it can be necessary pause. But when silence is only repeated avoidance, you need courage to name it, ending. And the paradox is, the sooner you accept the end, the sooner you open to a beginning. At first it hurts, but within the pain, you learn an important skill. No one has the right to define your value through their presence or absence. The man who vanished may carry his cowardice, but you can still move forward, whole and enough. For as Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." You are not the silence someone left behind. You are the one who chooses how to walk after that silence, and you can turn his disappearance into your strength. Number 7. Transformation. From his disappearance to your personal power. After passing through all the layers of silence, from the trap of false beliefs, unconscious tests, the mirror of dependence, the opportunity to return to yourself, his inner battles, and finally the harsh truth. When silence itself is the answer, you will realize one common point. All paths lead you back to yourself. This is the essence of transformation, turning an experience that seemed to strip you of everything into the very energy that helps you rediscover your true being. Carl Jung once emphasized, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And sometimes, you only begin that journey after a shock, when someone you trusted too much suddenly leaves, leaving behind a silence that seems impossible to fill. Imagine a seed buried in the earth. Outside it is dark, suffocating, seemingly abandoned. But in that very darkness, it begins to sprout, to root, and then to rise toward the light. His disappearance is like the soil covering you, forcing you to rise from within. This is no longer the journey of chasing after someone else, but the journey of constructing your own strength. In reality, many women have transformed silence into motivation in Next, nurture yourself with small but consistent acts. Wake up early for a walk. Write a page of honest feelings in your journal. Say no to something that doesn't align with you. Every small choice is a brick in the foundation of your self-mastery. Finally, remember this. True love never comes from begging, but from the meeting of two complete beings. When you learn to stand firm in silence, you become magnetic, not because you cling, but because you shine even when alone. Transformation, in the end, does not mean forgetting him. It means remembering him as a chapter in the book that led you to where you needed to be. The chapter of courage, the chapter of growth. And when you turn the page, you realize silence is no longer the end mark, but a comma that opens into a stronger journey. Remember, you are not the silence someone left behind. You are the one who chooses to turn it into strength, to walk on, to grow, and to become the most radiant version of yourself. By walking through the 7 layers of silence, you will come to an essential truth. What determines your future is not how long he disappeared, but how you chose to walk in that empty space. Out of the silence that once threatened to swallow you, a personal power can be awakened, the kind of strength that lets you stand firm, shine, and no longer be defined by anyone's presence or absence. A woman who understands this will no longer search for answers in someone else's silence, but will find herself in that stillness. And the paradox is this: the moment you stop proving, stop chasing, you become so magnetic that even the world must stop and listen. If today's message has touched you, don't forget to share this video so that more women can also find their strength in silence. And make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the journeys we will continue to explore with Jung, where you will learn to stand firm and shine in your own way.